Hey there, I'm the Communication Doc, and this is the third video in my series, How to Correct Common Communication Challenges. And we're talking about the common challenge of misunderstanding. In my last video, I discussed how our perception of ourselves can play into our misunderstanding of others. And in this video, I want to talk about how our perception of others impacts misunderstanding. There are a number of ways in which this happens, but I'm going to talk in this video specifically about how we form impressions of other people. And impressions are just a collection of perceptions that you have that are going to impact how you view other people as well as how you interpret their behavior. And there are a number of things that can impact our impressions of other people. There are a number of effects that have been documented, such as the primacy effect and the recency effect. And those two say, the primacy effect says that basically your first interaction with someone is going to be more memorable. And that's why we often hear about how first impressions matter or first impressions last. And that's because of that primacy effect. And then also recency effect says that your last impressions of someone are going to be memorable. So it's important as we're forming impressions of people not to let our first impressions or maybe a recent interaction we had with a person that may especially have been negative overly influence our impressions overall of that person. There's also a couple of effects called the halo and the horn effect. And these two are basically, the halo effect is that I interpret everything that somebody does in an overly positive way. And usually that happens because I had a very positive first interaction with that person. And the horn effect would be the exact opposite, where I interpret everything a person does in a very negative way, usually again because I had a negative perception. And so again, we have to be careful that we don't allow these documented effects that we know happen and that affect our impressions to be overly influencing our overall impressions of other people. Another thing that influences our impressions of other people is stereotypes. And I'm going to talk about stereotypes a little bit more in a later video, specifically what are the positive and negative aspects of stereotypes. But for this video, I just want to say that stereotypes are something that we actually need because they help us organize people into groups. Now, I want to say that stereotypes can be negative and cannot be accurate. They're not always accurate, but they exist because we need to have a way of organizing people we meet so that every time we meet a person, we don't have to go from ground zero. Now, I know you think, well, that might be nice, but it would also be extremely anxiety provoking. And just to give you a quick example, if you, for example, are meeting a teacher for the first time, let's say a college professor, well, you have a certain idea of what to expect from that particular situation, and that allows you to know how to act and how to behave in that situation. So stereotypes can be beneficial, but again, just like the other effects I mentioned, if we allow them to play too much of an impact in our impressions of others, or we form those impressions and we don't allow those impressions to change when we get information that contradicts our impressions, that's when they start to become a problem. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how our perceptions of others, specifically how we interpret their behavior, impact our communication with them. And until next time, let's get communication healthy.